Welcome to Cameras Off. Our first season was scheduled in 2025, but an unprecedented loss in the fishing community prompted this early episode to honor the unexpected passing of Bob Popovics. We gathered some of Bob's closest friends to spend another Tuesday night in his honor. His most frequent angling partner, Lance Irwin, Captain Paul Dixon, Joe Carey, photographer Tom Lynch, John Alpenalp, author Nick Corcione, and West Coast editor of Tail magazine, Al Quattrochi, aka Al Q, took a moment to go back in time once more. Bob was a larger-than-life leader in the fly fishing industry who loved sharing design ideas and pushing boundaries with his gravity-defying hollow fly, experimenting with epoxy and silicone to create nimble and durable flies and baitfish imitations. His book, Pop Flies, is a classic for learning the craft and reasoning for fly design. Bob is an inductee into the North American Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame, as well as the Catskill Fly Fishing Museum Hall of Fame. And in January 2025, the Isaac Walton Award will be awarded to him posthumously by the American Museum of Fly Fishing. A legendary host, Bob gathered people at his Shady Rest Restaurant and his home for his famous Tuesday nights from 1986 to 1992, a celebration of fly tying and friendship, until they outgrew the space and became the Atlantic Saltwater Fly Rodders Club. Bob gave us a glimpse into his world during the filming of Running the Coast. Hours were shared in his attic going through old movies and saved clippings in his self-created museum of saltwater fly fishing. The stories and the friends seemed to go on without end, a product of his love for sharing knowledge and experiences, often over the actual catching of fish. For now, it's Tuesday night and a bittersweet reunion of friends, united again by one man, Mr. Bob Popovics, with your host, Jamie Howard.
If I can add only one personal note, I first met Bob Popovics while we were filming Running the Coast. It's apparent that Bob really was about more than himself, and I think that's why he had the devoted friends that we're going to talk to this evening. And a perfect example of that and his devotion to the team was the day we needed to meet in Montauk, and he was in New Jersey. And we met him in the morning, and even though he was having trouble walking, much less driving, he got up there with Tom Lynch and joined us for a sun-filled morning chasing albacore before the striped bass arrived. A memory we won't forget, and we thank him for.
Look at those old guys. Oh, that's me.
Thanks a lot for being here tonight, guys. I thought maybe we'd start with Lance and your long-term friendship with Bobby.
I can tell you that Bobby was a life changer for me. He absolutely changed my life. And
Amen.
I can't get over it. I just can't. It's hard. It's really hard for us here.
I can't imagine it, Lance. And he always told me, I always talked to Bobby confidentially. He always used to say, Lance is my best friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was everybody's best friend, but it was an honor for me I was humbled by Bobby. He was a teacher. He was caring. He was giving. And we were brothers. I mean, Bobby thought of me as his brother, and I thought of him as my brother. And the good thing is, about 2 weeks before his accident, I called him up and I said, Bobby, I'm coming over for lunch. You're going to be there? Oh, yeah. So we sat in the back by ourselves and had a pizza and iced tea. And we just talked about old times, the vineyard. We just kept talking about old times. And it was good that we both understood we could never do it again because of our age or because of our health. But that was all right because we had all these memories, these great memories and great friends and everything. We talked so long, we had a second pizza. So we were there for like 5 hours, just talking and talking. And that time
do you remember when you guys were catching the albies off the jetty?
Oh yeah,
with the candies. Like
yeah.
There's videos of that. You just throwing your fly over and hooking like left and right.
Oh yeah, there's so many out. There's so many.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Who actually has been to one of the Tuesday nights of Bob's?
I have.
Lance, did you all eat early first?
At first, we did eat before we came, but there was only like a handful of guys now, maybe 4 or 5 guys that Bobby wanted to show different patterns. So then it became a little bigger as the time went on, and then Alexis started making us dinner. And then there got to be so many people that she, instead of making one dinner, she would make a chicken or a turkey and a ham and spaghetti. So that went on for some time. And then about 6 years into Bobby having all these guys over his house, it just got too big. There was like 50 some guys and his house was very small. So it became evident that we had to do something.
Were you there from day one?
I was from day one. Yeah.
Didn't Lexus make pie or some sort of a dessert?
Everything. She made pie. She made everything. Then we realized that we had to do something else. Bobby realized it. And that's when the club came into play. And that started around 92. And we moved to the first aid building, which had plenty of room. And at one time we had 280 some members. So that got quite a large. At one time when he had it at his house, he was having Lefty Kreh. And that would have created a real problem. So we didn't tell anybody until the regular guys that showed up there, because he was fearful that he would have just overwhelmed with people. And he probably would have, because at even not telling too many people, there was still 40 or 50 people there to see Lefty.
I remember he had to hide the fact that he was coming.
Well,
He
had to hide the fact that he had Lefty coming. I mean, he had other great speakers there, but none of them.
One of the things he did, Lance, was he sent me the picture. He had written, "Learn to Tie a Lefty Deceiver" by Bob Popovics. And then he crossed out Bob Popovics and wrote Lefty.
Oh, yeah.
Night of the, right?
Absolutely. Once it became a club and we had all these members, it was still on one night a month. It was still on a Tuesday night. And then we had different guest speakers come in, and it was great. I mean, it was great then. And I think the real draw was Bobby was willing to show everything that he knew, all his patterns and everything. He had no secrets. He would share that with anybody that was interested in learning. Didn't matter if you were 10 years old or 90 years old. He was that way. He was just that kind of guy.
He seemed to be a collector of friends, of objects. He'd always reach into a notebook and pull something out from 20 years ago.
He has notes from the first day that we all got together and fly tied at his house until probably even including the club. He never wanted to participate. He never wanted to be the president or vice president or anything like that. He just wanted to be a member of the club.
He was almost like a historian. I mean, he documented everything.
Yeah. In my 80 years of life, I've never met anybody like Bobby, and I never will. I never will meet anybody like Bobby. Everybody says, well, you were Bobby's best friend. Everybody was Bobby's best friend. I probably knew Bobby longer than anybody else. We became friends probably back in the early 70s. And it happened during Bluefish Blitz on the beach when Bobby had the fly rods. I wasn't fly fishing at the time. And I asked him if I could borrow a fly rod, and he gave me one, and that started our friendship.
I think I recall either you or he saying that you made fishing more enjoyable. Did he make fishing more enjoyable for you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was competitive, and I fished for a lot of wrong reasons. And through Bobby, I learned that nothing was competitive about it. It was relaxing, and you met really great people, even Paul Dixon, guys like that. But truly,
he's relaxed.
I will say that Bobby and Paul Dixon, I've got the greatest fish I've ever expected to catch with Paul.
I think that some of the cool stuff is what you're saying, Lance, and now about Bobby loved to document things. And I think that's what not only the club and how it started. I never went to the club meetings. He invited me down there. And then when everything started happening, he came our way. But he was the first guy that I ever saw filming that actually learned to operate a camera and showed up and said, hey, I want to film this. You remember those early days on the flats, Lance? And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You're going to film this?
Well, he thought periodically that I would take the camera and he would fish, and he found out right away that was never going to happen. I tried it one time, and he had beautiful video of his feet and the back of the boat, the motor, but no.
Hey, Lance, I want to ask you a question. And Bobby told me once that he was really an amazing mullet fisherman.
Bobby?
When he was younger, he threw the net and actually bought his first car casting a net. Did you do any of that stuff?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And he taught Scott, my son, he taught Scott how to throw a net.
Yeah.
And Scott was feared by any other net thrower down Island Beach because of the talent that Bobby showed him. And Bobby could throw a 10-foot net. I can't even pick one up, but Bobby was a
strong guy.
He was a strong guy. Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things that used to crack me up was when we used to go to the vineyard together, and Nick was really into knots. Okay. And he would
remember that.
Elaborate systems. And he would take this beautiful leader that it took him like 10 minutes to tie, go to Bobby. What do you think it is, Bob? And Bob would be just tying a fly, and he'd look up and he'd go, grab it and go, pop, just break it.
Yeah. I would spend an hour and a half, and he just like this here, pink. And it's like all gone. I was stitching them at the time.
Wow.
What got me, you kept trying, though. You kept trying these different knots, and hey, Bobby tried this one. And it was like crazy. Good times.
I'm curious, do you recall your first meeting with Bobby? Tom, do you recall where you first met?
Yeah.
Bob?
I met Bob at the North Jetty, and I was introduced to him by a guy named Bob McGinley, who was a pretty legendary guy. And I knew nothing about Pop, nothing. And McGinley goes, this guy's the real deal. So I had a camera with me, and I walked over to the jetty, and we just started talking, and we connected very quickly on the whole photography and video and film thing. And he started telling me that he was going to put these underwater cameras on stakes and things. I was like, I like this guy. And then we became fast friends that way, in a pretty special place too.
What are your fondest memories of Bob? I remember when you shot Running the Coast, you drove him up. Even at that point, you guys were pretty close, taking care of him.
Yeah, I would say the best day I ever had with Bob was the day before Superstorm Sandy, when we had a bluefish hit along the beach that was absolutely epic. These were 15 to 25 pound bluefish rampaging. And I remember Bob, there was a big crowd of guys, and Bob was like, now keep going. And we drove about 2 miles away from everybody and just crushed bluefish all day. And that day, aside from being a great fishing day, was probably the most important day of fishing in my life, because I was going to stay in my home during Hurricane Sandy so that I could photograph it. And Bob read me the riot act, and he said, you get your ass off the island. He said, you have to go. This is a serious storm. So my plans to stay, I left. I listened to him. And it's a good thing that I did, because the natural gas line in my home broke and spewed natural gas into my bottom floor. And if I had stayed, I would have blown up, because my garage door busted in, and then I had 48 or 50 inches of water, and I would have opened the door to the garage with candles on, and a real good chance I would have been blown to smithereens. So I think that day fate put me with him, and he gave me enough guidance to basically say, you got to leave. And I left, and I'm so glad that I did, because I probably would have blown myself up. And that's not hyperbole. Like,
Right.
That was natural gas spewing into the home. So thank you, Bob.
He saved your life that day.
I think pretty good chance. Yeah, for real. Mm-hmm. And he never used that tone. That was the only time he ever used that tone with me, was you got like, you're not staying. And, he let me know I had to leave, and I heeded his advice, and thank God I did. So
another theme with Bob, besides collecting, which I think is, whether it was collecting people, friends, fly tying materials, historical documents, he would also collect footage. In the early days, Paul, you and Bob spent a lot of time together, and that was part of the deal, to think of documenting what was out there.
As I think back on it, how I met Bobby was, I think I was working at Orbis in the early days, and he came in and we had a conversation, and we have a club here and there. And I may have had him I forget. But that was probably in the 80s. And then he always said, you got to come down. We got our club. And then I saw him at one of the, I think 91 is when Somerset started. And so I said, Bob, you got to come to Montauk. You got to come see Montauk. So when he showed up in Montauk, he had a camera. He said, let's shoot some film, because I told him about the blitzes and what was on. He's like, oh, well. So he shot the film. The second year that I did the show, the first years I did it for Orvis, but when I started my own store and started the guiding business and the whole thing, I think it was in, I don't know, 93. So Bobby had shot all this film of the blitzes. And so we set up this little TV at the show and played it. And the fire marshals, eventually it got so crowded and nobody had seen the blitzes. The striper had disappeared. And this is just the beginning, probably 2 years before they deemed it recovered. And Lance, you remember back in those days, and probably everybody here does, but all of a sudden the stripers everywhere, from nothing to the greatest story of all time. So the Somerset show, it would block the aisles and people would say, where the hell is this? And 6 people, you couldn't move. And so finally the fire marshal said, they came into the booth and said, you got to shut that off. I said, what do you mean? They said, you're blocking the whole aisle. You have to shut it off. It's like, Bobby, dude, they shut you down. But that's the thing we just started doing this stuff. And Lance and I had the same thing. I told Bobby, I said, you and Lance, you should come down to the Keys. And he's like, okay. I said, we could get some stuff. So we did. I think to this day, Lance landed the largest ocean running tarpon that I've caught. And Bobby wanted to film the whole time. And the weird thing was my boat had broken down. So there was also Sam Tellerico, who was a great photographer. And so the boat broke down. I got a loaner, and it was a smaller boat that was supposed to have, I think, 3 people. I think we had 5. What was the last 1, 2, 3, 4? So it was 4 of us, but it was a small boat. So Bobby filmed this whole thing, and Lance hooks this monster, and I have to go in the water untangling the line and I get back in the boat. It's the first time. Later that night, Bobby turns around and he says, let's look at the footage. And so this whole scene takes place where Lance hooks, and it's a big, I think that fish was 150 to 170 pounds, which for an ocean fish, and it was out of a school of 300. It was the biggest school, I think, that it stretched through. And I told Lance, we're going to get 30 shots into this. Well, the first cast that he makes, the lead fish, which is always the largest fish, grabs the fly. And for the next 3 hours, we fight this. But Bobby films it. And that's the first time we get back and play it that night. And I realized Bobby's behind me at the polling platform, and I'm driving the boat. and it's like I'm bald. I never knew I was going bald in the back of my head. And so Bobby's laughing. Of course, Lance, it's like it's a big laugh and everything. But we had some great times, and that was just one of the epic times. And same thing, you go back and show that film. And
we have that film.
That
film exists. Yeah, that film exists. I think I might even have a copy of it.
Yeah.
And it's at when he jumps in the water, Lance got wrapped around a coral head, and like in a nanosecond, Paul is in the water, taking the line off the.
It's all coming back to me now. Lance, I used footage. I used that footage. I realize now the joke was that you were paying no attention to Paul and the fish was off in the distance. That was the fish.
Yeah.
Right.
It was way out there. It was way out there.
Way out.
And then, but you lost your pliers. Remember, you lost your pliers. Yep. You went in with the pliers in your pouch there, and when you came out, they weren't there anymore.
And I think Bobby bought me a new pair when I got back. He said, He was like, oh, dude, you didn't have to do that. He's like, oh. But yeah, it's such special memories and special times and excitement and everything. And that was the beauty of Bob, is he didn't really care if he fished. I mean, he got so into the filming. He'd come up and he'd take some cast and do some stuff and try out a line. But most of the time, He's looking at the fly and seeing if it's moving right in the water, and then he'd hand the rod back to Lance. Okay, you're on. Action.
I had to perform. That was the hard part.
Yeah.
You knew where fish were, but I had to catch them, and that was difficult.
You caught them all, Lance. You caught them all.
Paul yelled at me, Al. Why?
I was waiting for that. That's
He used the F word at me.
You remember trying to land that thing, and come on, Lance, it's been 3 hours. And it was hot as Hades. There wasn't a breath of wind, and there's this huge storm over the Everglades. Lance has got his foot up in the center console, and Bobby's like, come on, Lance, just push and pull on that thing. And he is, I am. But yeah, it's great fun, great times.
Well, Jamie, I'll tell you briefly how I met Bobby. It was around, I think it was around 1990 when that cover came out. The American Angler magazine came out with that cover, and Bobby's, all his candies were on the cover. And I was mesmerized by that as a kid. I was living in California. I recognized all those baits because I grew up in the East Coast. And I didn't know who that was or whatever. And I had done a little fishing trip with Lefty, and I asked Lefty, who is this? And Lefty goes, oh, that's Bob Popovics. And he's a great fly tyer. And he goes, he just did a video and about how to tie all these patterns. And Lefty sent me the video. And I'm in California with this video. I called Nick immediately, and I said, Nick, we got the Holy Grail. I mean, we got this amazing, all these patterns, right? Nobody knows about this stuff on the West Coast. And so I run over to Nick's house. We pop it in his TV. We watch it. And then that spring of 91, Nick invites me up to San Mateo. He's working with Orbis at the time. And I go up there and I'm hanging out, and he goes, come back to the booth around lunchtime. So I go back to the booth, and Nick goes, you're not going to believe this, but I met your buddy. I said, who? He goes, Popovics is here in the San Mateo show. He goes, I just met him. We're going to have lunch together. I said, no way. He goes, yeah. And we all had lunch, and that was the beginning of our friendship. We all met that day. And it was just
why do you think that you all were fast friends all these years? What, since day one, there was seemed to be an easy person for you to be friends with?
I always felt Bobby was like an older brother. I mean, there was no, like Lance said, there's no competition. It was just, he was just, as a young fly tyer, I was with Mickey Mantle. And he realized when people are passionate about something, he really gave them, he helped them, he nurtured them. He wanted them to succeed. And I was just very blessed that I was around the right place at the right time and got to meet like some of the coolest people ever through Bob. Lance, and we used to go to the vineyard and just laugh our asses off the whole time. It was so much fun. Those are the best years of my life, I think. Really. He was just a very giving person.
Nick, where did you first meet Bobby? I forget.
Well, like Al said, it was at Lefty talked about him to me for years. He kept saying, you got to meet this guy Popovic. And he was saying that to Popovic. So the first time was at the San Mateo. Yeah, the San Mateo show. And then, like Lance is saying, we became so close. My only regret is being here on the left coast. I never got to spend the time with him that I liked. But the times, and Bob and I talked about this with our health issues and everything else. He says, Nick, we have the memories. So that's what I hold on to now. But my experiences with Bob were as diverse as Montauk, the Vineyard, Baja. You were there, Lance, on that one trip. And my criminal law class at Loyola, which he would come out for back in the day, Marriott's fly fishing store. They had a fly fair, and it was quite the little fly fair for a shop. And it was the weekend before Thanksgiving. And in fact, I would pick up Lefty a lot. Lefty came to my class. Flip came to my class. In fact, I said one day, Jesus Christ, if somebody bombed this place, all the luminaries in the fly world are going to be dead. Andy Renzetti, Flip Pallet, Popovic, and Bob used to laugh. I just have to say this, and this is not false modesty on my part. No one ever asked me for a fly. Okay, in 15 years. That's how bad my stuff is. I never had to give one away. And as I said in my tribute to him, I always knew I had a good fly. When Bob would look at it and he would turn it over, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, like I'm going before the man here. And he'd go, Nick, did you tie this? Yes, Bobby. And I knew I had it. When he asked if I tied it, then I knew it was fine. But I had the worst creations imaginable. But it was, and I learned a great deal from him. It never manifested itself in my tying, but.
You remember, Nick, at my pool when we got blown out?
Yes.
And Bobby wouldn't get in. I said, Bobby, get in. Let's test that. He was doing the pop lips. First time he'd ever tied one. He was using the silicone. He made this big lip. And he said, let's test. I said, just get it in the pool. Let's pull this thing. He said, I don't swim. He said, you guys get in the pool. Do you remember that? We both.
You know, I said, how the hell could you be a Marine?
I know.
Yeah.
He said, I'm not buoyant. I can't swim. You know,
it's unreal. And pulling the fly through, and then he'd come out and he'd trim the lip of it. And then we'd say, okay, that's wiggling pretty good, Bob. That's what you go, I think a little more. And that was the cool thing when you realized how much Bobby always wanted to learn, let alone to teach. And that's what I found fascinating about Bob. And not only is his great human nature and everything, but he would go net the bait and sit down and examine the bait like a scientist, and then think about where he could take it and what he could do with it. I remember tying worm flies when they first did all these, I think it was Scott Collins, won all 3 tarpon tournaments. And it was a worm fly and nobody was using the double overhand strip. And eventually, Lance, I had to send Andy Mill film of you underhand stripping for tarpon because everybody got pissed at Andy when he wrote an article about underhand. That was the secret, was stripping like we do in the Northeast. And Andy said, everybody's mad at me because I gave this away. I said, let me send you a film that we shot in 1995 or whatever. He's like, dude. So Bobby, I tell him, I said, Bobby, there's this fly that they're using. And this guy down there, I forget his name, he came up with it. And it was like a material that Bobby used all the time, but it was siliconed on it, but it was the leader was actually snelled to the fly. And so I called Bobby right away when I heard this, that they were good. I said, Bobby, I got this thing, and this is I've heard about this, and I've taken a picture of a friend who did this. I said, what do you think about this? And a week later, I get this box. He said, I think I got it. Try these. And he had snelled the fly and made these purple. And I think it was the first cast. It was hammered. It was like he'd solved it again. And that was him. He was always teaching, but also really learning and trying to perfect the way that he approached everything. So great memories.
What I want to say again about what you just said, Paul, was from a design standpoint, I'm a creative person. What I always loved about Bob was he thought 3-dimensionally. He didn't look at the fly from one angle. He looked at that fly from every angle. And he looked at it how it swam. And it wasn't about making something pretty. It was really about solving a problem. Every time he tied something, he was solving a problem. He was figuring it out and making it so that you can do it in a way that was fairly easy so other people can do it.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of what really he left us. He left us an amazing amount of patterns that are not too difficult to tie. If you learn how to tie and you spend a little time at the vise, they're all doable, they're all durable, and they all work. And they're there for a reason. He thought of every possible way. When somebody would come to him and say, what do you think of this? He had already did it 10 times before. He covered it because he was so obsessed with really nailing each bait fish, each pattern, how you strip it. I mean, he was a genius. I called him the Leonardo da Vinci of the vise.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and you can see it in today's tires and everything. When Bob came up with the beast flies and everything, there wasn't a ton of bunker around. It would hit the beaches, but you'd have to have a big fly to throw and everything. And well, now the bunkers come back big time. And if you've ever seen an explosion of a fly, you look at Popovics because of whether it was the spread fly or the deer hair deceiver, but the beast flies, because now the bunker's back and everybody that I know that's tying flies and everything, that's what they're tying.
But the beauty of that beast fly is he always talked about it. How do I get bulk without weight?
That's right.
How do I make a big fly that doesn't weigh anything, and it opens up in the water? And that's one of his greatest creations, really, by reverse tying in stages and building a big profile that doesn't weigh much. When he first started doing those flies, he was using that big fly fiber. Remember that stuff?
Yep.
And you had to be a gorilla to cast that. I mean, that was heavy to cast, and he could do it. I mean, he could throw it 100 feet without a problem. But when he got to that beast fly, it was a game changer. It really was, because it really allowed everybody to cast something big that they couldn't normally cast.
Yep.
And he kept it too. I saw it in a little baggie. He kept
The original?
the museum
Oh,
pieces, each one. He always treated everything like a serious endeavor. I know this is going to be a piece of history. I'm going to save this and I'm going to progress from there at every stage.
Joe, where did you first meet him?
Yeah.
I first met Bob, believe it or not. He came into the restaurant I was running, and him and Alexis came in for dinner. And I knew him in passing to wave to him from seeing him on the beach in the van and everything. But that was the first time we ever really talked. And then the next week they showed up again. Monday night was their date night, and they used to go up to Point Pleasant to Frankie's. So this one Monday night they came in, and I talked to them, and the next Monday night they showed up again. And they were there every Monday night forever since then. And he used to say to me, "Oh, you're the reason." And then he knew I fished. So then he started talking to me about, you got to fly fish. It's the evolution of a fisherman. You soak bait, then you throw plugs. Now you got to push yourself. You got to be a fly fisherman. And I was like, well, yeah, I didn't fish that much. And like Lance, I fished to catch a lot of fish and to catch big fish. And again, the same thing happened. I got into fly fishing with Bobby, got me into the club. He took me down. My first lesson was in the street in front of his house. My second lesson was in the parking lot at the Shady Rest, where I destroyed his red maple with backcast. Every time I'd hit it, he'd say, "That's an expensive tree, you know." But then we just started. We really just connected. I mean, he was one of those people, again, who gathered things. And as one of our friends, Colin, has said many times, Bob had an knack for putting good people together. Like he would say, this person needs to know this person. And
They weren't all good. Look at this.
well, I mean, but look, other than him, I'd never be sitting here with you guys. And I've been places and met people I never would have before. And we just really hit it off. And we had so much fun traveling. We'd go to the vineyard every year, sometimes twice a year. We went down to see Paul and the Keys. We've been up to Montauk a couple times, and the laughs. And just, he also taught me that sometimes the trip is more fun than the fishing. You have more fun at the table, having dinner afterwards and busting each other's balls and traveling and listening to them snore through the whole state of Connecticut every time we went to the vineyard. Because whether Connecticut's a bear to drive through, and whether it took us 2 hours or 5 hours, Bob would sleep straight through it. And they'd wake up and go, hey, Connecticut wasn't bad today. But he had no idea. He never saw it. We had so much fun.
Well, to your point, I think he always talked about how fishing was great, but the camaraderie was the bigger deal.
And that's where he changed my life, because he taught me that. He made me a better person, even outside of fishing. He really set an example as what you should do as a person, as a good human being. As one of my friends says, life's not hard if you're a decent human being. Well, Bob was an exceptional human being. And he didn't
He cared about people.
Yeah, he didn't force that on you, though. You just wanted to be like him because of it. So it really, he was an amazing human being. And as I say, he changed so many lives that it's amazing. And I just feel so blessed that I was able to experience so much time with him, because we lived in the same town. We worked in the same industry. We fished the same beaches. We did so much together. I almost feel like I bumped Lance out from time to time. Lance would go hunting and I'd be like, oh, now I get to see Bob. But no, he was just a great guy.
Amen.
And to us, I just want to say, to us, he was just Bob. And that's why I never realized until the first time I went away with him that he was a celebrity. He didn't want to be. I always tell a story. We were up in the vineyard fishing, and we're walking down the sidewalk back to his van, and these two guys are walking, and we're talking because we'd had a good day. And the guy's just freezing in the middle of the sidewalk. And the one guy looks at me and goes, you're Bob Popovics. And Bob, in his normal friendly way, he's like, "Yeah, man, how you doing?" He shakes their hands. "You guys fly fishing? I mean, you up here with your families? We got great weather." Blah, blah, blah. And the guys are like they think they're like talking to Tom Brady. They're just standing there stunned.
They were.
And the guy turns to me and he looks at me and he goes, "Who are you?" And I'm like, I've never felt so important and so insignificant at the same time in my life. That's what Bob was like. Everybody, he was a celebrity that didn't want to be a celebrity. I mean, if other celebrities behaved like Bob, the world would be a better place.
Better place. I got to tell you a funny story about when Bob became well known, but not crazy well known. We would be together and we would be walking side by side, and somebody would go, "Are you Bob Popovics?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm Bob." And I said, "This is my buddy Lance." He said, "Could you get into how you tie the flies?" And I said, "Yeah, it's simple. My wife ties most of them."
That's great.
So, another story, we go to Nick's house, his apartment in Redondo Beach. Was that right, Nick?
Yep, Redondo.
Yeah. So he's got this perch thing. It's about this big on his wall, and it has world record underneath it. And Bobby said, "That's a world record?" He goes, "Yeah." He says, "I tie flies bigger than that." It was a sea perch or something, Nick?
Surf perch.
I actually don't remember. It would have been a barred surf perch. I always said if I got one 3 pounds on the fly, it would go on the wall. So maybe I did have one back then. I can't even remember.
No, I think you had a record. It was a record. You said it was a record.
I could have lied.
Yeah, you lied. You lied.
Well, this fraternity that you guys are in, I don't know if you want to call him the fraternity president, but you guys are in a fraternity, and these are the type of things that happen. You making fun of someone's record, or I heard there was even a dishwasher incident. I don't know if Al can reflect on that a
That
little
was the
bit.
best. Remember that, Lance? We were in the vineyard, and I was going to pick dinners. We would take turns who was going to cook and who was going to do dishes. So it was our turn.
Nobody ever did dishes. I did all the dishes.
I did.
No,
Well, anyhow, it was me and
Nick
Dick's
Dennis
turn.
did this one night.
Yeah, it was me and Dick's turn to do the dishes, right? So we go in the kitchen, and I'm looking around for the dishwasher soap, whatever, and there's none. There's no powdered Dick's dishwasher. And Dick goes, "Wait a second, no, you can use regular dishwashing soap." I said, "I don't think so." He goes, "No, you can." And Dick was very, adamant about it. "You can do this." I said, "All right, you do it." So he poured the dishwasher soap. And we shut the thing and turned it on, and I went in the other room. I didn't want to even look. I was tying flies in there, just like, and all of a sudden somebody walked in there and was like, "Holy shit, what the?" It was like the bubble, the whole
Lawrence Welk show.
classic.
How about when he ruined the steaks? He put the charcoal lighter on the steaks, and they were like frying steaks. Bobby and he was eating. Nobody else could eat it. He was eating down. And I said, "Dick," I said, "not for nothing, man. You're going to die. You're going to die." But we had a good time.
Do you remember there was one night at Menentia? I don't know if Nick was with us, and it was Nick, you, all of us, and we were walking, and there was a point where there was a good spot at the very end, and we were all doing the walk to get to the point, and Dick went into a power trot. He like busted out and went to the power trot to get the spot, and Bobby had nothing. He goes, "I'm not having this." And Bobby went into the super power trot, and they were literally for like half a mile just going back and forth at each other, and Bobby like passes him and got the spot, and Dick was really pissed. It's hilarious.
I remember that. Yeah.
We had a good time.
Sometimes, man.
If you could have one more day with him, how would you spend that day?
I used to drive down from Connecticut just to eat his ribs, but obviously it wasn't just the food, it was to see Bob. Lance, do you remember that one evening we had that was magic? Paul, you were there. This guy, Charlie Barlow, another couple from Connecticut. I put it together and we had dinner there and laughed probably for 3 hours that night. You remember that at all, Lance?
I remember it, sure.
When Bob stayed with me, he used to tell everybody the only thing in Curcion's refrigerator is beer and film. Because remember in those days you stored your film in the refrigerator. So, but my sister and her husband would cook a big dinner, and he used to tell my sister it was the best brajol he had ever eaten. And my sister just like, coming from Bob, I mean, this was from the heart. It was great. The ultimate compliment. But I would spend the time that, like you did, Lance. I used to love those precious few times I was able to go back with him. You sit in the back of his restaurant, have a meal, eat, and just talk. And the times on the water were great, but so were the times off the water. That's what the kind of guy he was. I think I would have had fun with him in goddamn prison. It's like he was that kind of human being.
So many great memories. Harker's Island, all the festivities down there, when the albacore had just been discovered, and just so many, like the memories just go flooding back of all the great times and but it did come down to really, it was the camaraderie. The fishing was sometimes great, sometimes not so good and everything else. But the laughing and the fun was I think the best part of Bobby. It was just sharing the experience with a wonderful human being.
I remember spending an afternoon with him at the Shady, just trimming roses. We trimmed roses for 3 hours, filled 3 garbage cans full of roses. And it was awesome. We just talked and cut roses, and it didn't matter what you did. You were just hanging out with Bob. It was great.
The time when you had the glow in the dark line, can you remind me?
That was in Martha's Vineyard. He had talked to Jay Vincent from Rio Lines and said, hey, can you make us a glow in the dark line? Because we're fishing at night for stripers. So he gave him a bunch of lines and he passed them out to everybody. And I remember fishing alongside. You use your light in your basket to light up the line. And then you can see it in the air and cast it. And then once a fish ate the fly, and the line took line, it would be like nuclear linguine. It would just go disappear into the water and go away. And then when you fought the fish, it would come out. This like glowing line would come out. It was really cool stuff. You remember that, Lance?
Yeah. It never went any place though. It never took
off. It never took off. But it was really cool. Cool stuff.
Yeah. I still have one.
Yeah, it's called Luminex, right? Or something. Luminex line.
It was just the head was glow in the dark, and then one the whole fly line was.
Just the top part of the line. Yeah.
Who's the owner of the leaky nipple?
I was.
That was your boat.
That was my boat. That was the name of my boat.
I remember that boat.
The leaky nipple had no flotation, and the guy I bought it from begged me not to ever take it in the ocean. And the first time I saw him was about 8 miles north of the inlet. And Bobby and I were chasing the albacore around. But a funny story, we pulled by the jetty there, and Bobby had waders on. So I said, Bobby, this is probably not a good place to have a pair of waders on. He said, why not? I said, because if we get swamped or get hit a rock or something, we're going to go down. There's no flotation in the boat. He said, don't worry about it. I can't swim. And I said, I think you're all over the place with the fault that he couldn't swim.
Yeah, well, in the pool.
That's right. But that was a good boat. That was a nice boat. It was actually a Florida boat used for netting pompano. That's why the motor was all set on it.
Did you name it?
No. Yeah, I named it. Well, since then now, we graduated up to Leaky Nibble 8.
Wow.
We have now, we have eight boats we've won.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Speaking of boats, a quick funny story too. So we had just finished shooting the Walker's Cay Chronicles with Bobby on the beach, and we eked this. So we shot 2 episodes, one with me in the boat, and then Bobby on the beach, and it ended up that the Flip had to improvise, and they got on the boat, but they got 2 shows out of it. So Flip leaves, and he's leaving, and Bobby's like, well, we're on our own. We can go fishing now. So I'll never forget, we leave the jetty and we're running out, and it's calm, but it's got some waves or whatever. And he said, so did you hear this thing where Lou Tabry put in 2 holes in his scupper? He said, have you ever had the boat fill with water? I said, I really haven't. And Lou called me and told me the same thing. And I said, I just never had it happen. So I would just have the one scupper. And about a minute later, as we're coming through Shagwan, I look at the wave before it hits us, and it hits his broadside. And it hits his chest. And Bobby's a big boy, but we clipped this wave, And I'll never look at the look on Bobby's face. He looks over at me, and the whole gunnel in the I had a Hughes 20 is filled with water up to his boots are filled, everything's filled. And he looks at me and says, "I'm going to call you Captain Submarine. Are we going to be okay?" I said, "Don't worry, Bob. We'll just keep going. It'll drain eventually." I forget what it was. I think it was Captain Nemo or something, but right away, fucking Captain Nemo. Anyway, just great memories.
There was always a positive energy there.
When you're really good at something,
Mhm.
you don't have to prove it to anybody. Like he was so good at what he did, there was nobody better. It was
Nobody.
like he just gave. He was like, "Come into my world. You want to be in my world? I'll invite you in. You can come in and I'll show you whatever I know." But there was such a confidence in him. He didn't really have to prove anything to anybody.
What
But
happened
when you-
when Lefty wrote an article about Bobby and called him the best fly tire and innovator, best innovator and fly tire in the world, in his opinion. Bobby showed me the article and we kept looking at it and reading it. And we kept looking at each other. And he goes, "Do you believe this shit?" And I said, "Well, yeah, if he says it, I guess it's true." And it never got to his head. That's one thing, Al, you got to admit, it never got to his head. Ever got to his head. He was Bobby before he started getting famous for flying ties, and he was Bobby afterwards.
He was the same all the way through. Yeah.
Same, all the way.
Yeah.
All the way.
Yeah.
And the boy can cast.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Very good cast.
Tom, I want to just say I'm thrilled still that it was your photo that made they used it for the cover of my last book, The Saltwater Edge. A great shot you took of Bobby throwing it backhanded in the surf.
That's
you
a
remember-
classic.
For him, I clicked a button. He fired those
You
things
could
out.
put that loop through a keyhole.
Yeah.
I remember when I shot with him that day, and I'm not a fly guy, so I don't know what perfection is in that respect. And I remember he was looking through the pictures and he was like, "Oh, that's the one."
Yeah.
He was very
Great
excited.
cast.
A phenomenal caster. Just watching him do his stuff, it was spectacular. And the fly tying, of course, spoke for itself. But the real memories of Bob, he always struck me as such a gentle, humble,
Right.
grateful individual.
Yeah.
Or the Bonefish and Tarpon Trust dinner, we reach out every year and say, "Bob, come on, why don't you join us?" "I don't wear ties, I don't do this," etc.
His home, I think that was his happy place. I think when he was in his attic, he was in his happy place. I don't know how much time he spent in the attic, but that's where he liked to be. Either there or on the beach.
I've never been in the attic. I've been to the restaurant,
Right.
and it was in Montauk on one of the trips. When the first time he said, "What can I bring? What can I do?" etc. And he brought up a bucket full of his Fra Diavolo sauce.
Yeah.
So that became a staple. When he passed, I actually had 2 buckets left in my freezer down here that I've given to someone else. And the next time we're all together in this location, we're going to have it. But we would tell Bob when we go on these trips that, look, even if you can't make it, send the Fra Diavolo. Which was, and he'd get in the kitchen wherever we are, prep it up for us, and it was always spectacular. But I was at the restaurant, I got the Fra Diavolo, but I was never in the house. I was invited, but I never made it to the house.
You're right. Well, there was a generosity of spirit there that I think you're talking about, the humbleness. It was the camaraderie more than catching fish. He
100%.
tied those flies so then he could share them and then you could share the experience back to him.
100%. 100%. So much more give than took. I don't remember him taking anything and taking. He received. He didn't take. He received.
Mhm.
And it was always with such gratitude. Yeah. Almost, I don't want to get too carried, but almost saintly. I mean, it was just that kind of, being, you just wanted to be around the guy and feed off it.
And he always, when he came out to Montauk for the Pirates party, when we did early on, he made Fra Diavolo sauce, and that was
The clam sauce, too.
yeah.
It was had
Yeah, the green sauce was great. Yep.
Yeah, had 5-gallon buckets. Like it's like, well, there's 20 of us, but are we going to eat really? 10 gallons. But
Such a humble and wonderful man.
We have the next issue of Tail Magazine is going to be a beautiful tribute to Bobby, and a bunch of your shots are in there, Tom. We're really grateful that you were able to let us use those.
I consider all my Bob shots like open source. Anyone who wants
Yeah,
it.
I mean, they really tell the story, but you'll see the love on those pages because all his cronies have spoken and said a few words about him, and it's going to be. I feel like it's going to be something I'll keep for the rest of my life. This issue because it's very special.
Yeah.
Oh, I just want to comment on that. When you gave us that assignment to tell you what Bob meant to us in 3 sentences,
That was hard.
we were all
No,
like,
I know it was an impossibility, but
was
they
hard.
wouldn't want to give the whole magazine on Bob. That was the problem.
Yeah. no, but what I want to say is the amazing thing is I've talked to 3 or 4 different people and we all wound up in the same place with that. Like we all wrote something, tore it apart 10, 15, 20 times, and we all wound up with his kindness and his generosity. And that so much more is of a statement about Bob than anything he did in fly fishing, not to belittle the amazing contributions he made. I mean, he revolutionized the whole sport in my mind with the bringing new materials in, getting the approval from the old guard, all of that. But the fact that the people who knew him and really looked at him, that was almost secondary to who he was. I mean, the person he was and the inspiration he was to people how to live your life was more important. It was more of what we got from him. So,
And Joe, I hope that's what people come away with. I hope that's what people really come away with.
I do. I just wanted to thank you because you pushed pretty much everybody out of their level of comfort by making them do it that way. But the end result was a beautiful thing that came out of it. So thank you for making it difficult.
So Al, before I forget, I don't think we get that magazine out here. So
I'll send you guys magazines. Don't worry.
Okay.
You'll get
When's that coming out, Al?
January.
It'll be out January. It's a January-February issue. Don't worry.
Thanks.
Hey, I got one last thing here for me anyway, but Bob made you feel good even in the worst of circumstances. So I just tell you this real short story. With this gal in Jersey. Of course, I'm living in California, right? So this is not a good thing anyway. As I used to tell Lefty when things weren't going right, the tippet was wearing thin, and she tosses me out of her place, and there I am in someplace in Jersey, no car. My luggage is on the front lawn, and I call Bob. I said, Bobby, can you come and pick me up? And he pulls into the driveway, and he sees my stuff all over the front lawn. This gal's not happy. And Bob starts he's got all his friends on speed dial. Okay, guess what happened to Curcione again? I had to laugh myself, though. It's like, you won't believe where he is to come down. He laughs so hard. And it's like, I mean, I choke up when I think about it. But that's the kind of guy he was. You felt good all the time around him.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't ever remember him saying a bad thing about. I mean, if he said something bad about you, you were bad. You were bad.
You deserve
it. You sucked. He's the most giving person. I was down in my cleaning reels getting ready to go south today. I don't know if you can see this. And years ago, he finished a fly and he put it to dry. And I said, Bobby, that is a cool little thing to hold a fly. And he turns around and he hands it to me. He says, okay, this one's yours. That quick. I wasn't really saying that thing. He goes, nope, it's yours.
Don't feel special. Hey, Paul, don't feel special. We all got one.
Did he have 2 dozen made?
He only took them out one at a time, though.
Do you still have your Pop Flies jacket, Lance?
Oh, I do. I absolutely do.
That's the one thing I regret, that I finally either lost or ripped apart or got burned up. I've got his hats and stuff.
Lance, are you wearing, this is one of my big regrets. I cannot find the Pop Fly earring.
The what?
Are you wearing yours?
Oh, I still have mine. I still do. I still have it.
Okay, great. Yeah, I hope I can. I made too many moves. I hope I can find mine.
Okay, guys, let's all chip in and we're going to get Nick an earring.
That'll work.
Bobby's request.
No, I still have mine.
And you've got the T-shirt on underneath. Is that right? Is that what I just saw there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the old ones.
No.
No, old one's the blue.
Yeah,
Blue with the
yellow and gold.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have one of them somewhere.
That
Yeah.
was the most desired
that was
color.
the one.
Yeah.
That's the collector's piece.
That's the one.
Besides this hat.
Well, I don't know.
Wow.
I'm going to be doing some new Beast hats, and I'm going to whatever money I get from him, I'm going to give proceeds to his foundation to the kids.
Tom, your photographs through the years have been a great companion. When I think of Bob, I think of this logging of the sport. I don't know if you guys were working in tandem, but those were certainly part of that era of getting people excited about the sport.
Yeah, we would go out, and sometimes he would say, "Hey, listen, I need photos for something, a project he'd be working on." And so we would go out with that in mind and try to do a specific thing. And he was such a professional in that respect, where he knew where to stand, like for my lighting to be the best. Like everything he did was totally professional. And then I just basically had to shoot, and he did everything. Like but the fact that when I got that loop shot of him, he wanted me to also capture the back cast. So if you ever see the original photo, I was shooting wide. I had the back and the front of that cast going out because I was way up the beach. But in his mind, he was, I'm sure, wanting those pictures taken so that he could be instructional about it and show the whole cast going back and forth. But to answer your question, yeah, we would set out to go shoot pictures, and a lot of times we went out with a mission of what he wanted, whether it was his beast flies in a certain way where he would want to show the fibers and everything. So we always had an agenda, like when we were going to shoot.
What about when you were wave hunting? You've got some really iconic shots of fish and waves.
Very excited. He was a great photographer. I mean, and a great video guy. His stuff was really pretty and amazing.
I wish Bobby had high-res video back in the day. Those early videos are epic.
Yeah.
Did you ever see the bunker in the heart shape with the bluefish in the middle and the blood? Just, I have to dig up that shot. It was one of the shots of his. Yeah.
But he was the one that, Tom, you mentioned doing the pole. I remember when he did that in Montauk, where we came back and we got to get underwater. We've got to film these fish underwater, and coming back, and we got to find a pole and getting a PVC pipe and strapping the camera on, and okay, let's go try it. And he'd move it around, and then we'd go back and look at it. And there might have, I mean, the trial and errors that he would go through trying to get the perfect shot or trying to do it. That was the beauty. He knew what he wanted. He had a vision of, I got to get this. This is what it was really important to capture. And when you look back on those videos, the underwater stuff, you might only get 3 seconds and he'd spend 3 hours. But it was cool as shit. When people saw that, they were like, oh my God, how did you do that? You know, but that was Bobby.
Paul, didn't he save the Walker's Cake Chronicle episode by having some footage?
I just watched.
Absolutely.
You know, you guys had really bad weather, and he filled in with a bunch of really cool footage, right?
Well, it was there all of it.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing with, he was so disappointed after because we got hit by a hurricane. When Flip showed up, then they gave us 8 days to shoot 2 shows, and Bobby's was the first show for the first 4 days. And when Flip arrived, the blitzes were going on. Flip came down to the beach. He couldn't believe it. Bobby's like, oh, we're going to slay him. This is unbelievable. And then the hurricane hit. So for 2 days, they did the B-roll and everything else. But he had so much stuff. And after brainstorming, I said, Bobby, we're going to get this because they're coming back. And it only took 1 day to do the boat show. And then with Bobby's stuff that he had and everything else, they put the other show together. But it was all, thank God, that he had shot all the footage that they really wanted to have, the underwater stuff. And
he wanted to do more of that too. Like he wanted to continue to do his video and up his video game. The last time we sat down and talked, there was a lot of discussion about that, where he wanted to get another camera and he loved doing it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something really cool. I think it was the mid 90s. Whenever the Apple came out with the video camera, it was already built in. It was a video camera. And I started playing around and I said, Bob, we can communicate back and forth. This is before Zoom. This is before Skype, all that stuff. They had this camera. You could actually, if you had a camera and someone else had a camera, I could see them, they could see me, and we could communicate. And we started talking about this. And I said, dude, what? I can beam you from Seaside into the fly shop here in Van Nuys, and you can show us how to tie a fly. I'll have an audience. I'll have a camera pointing at the audience so you can see the audience. We can see you. And this could be really cool. And it was very innovative at the time because nobody was doing that. So we figured it out and we put it together and it worked. And I remember there was an old timer in the audience that knew Bob. And Bob saw the audience and goes, "Is that Cabby?" or whatever his name was. And the guy goes, "Hey, Bob." He was like waving to Bob. And it was like just brand new technology. But he actually tied a fly for us in California from Seaside on just a random early Mac, which was awesome. And it was really because he always thought out of the box. He was always thinking of new ways to do things. It was great.
I think it was a natural gift he
Yeah,
had.
it was a gift that he had.
That he got into this field and it just exploded in his mind.
Yeah.
And he just had that mind, like you see in very intelligent people. He saw things that other people just miss. And he would see things, and afterwards he'd see something, or he would tie a fly in a different way, and you'd look at it and you'd be like, "I'm an idiot. Why didn't I think of that?" Like, it's so obvious and so simple, but you just didn't. I mean, it took his genius to see it and put it together that way. And I don't, he never said that anybody in his family was creative or anything like that. I just think this was what he was meant to do.
Yeah.
This is what he was here for. And nobody did it better.
Nobody.
And as I say, and everything he did, he pushed the limits on, whether it was video, whether it was communication with computers and texting and fishing and developing flies. He always wanted to improve what he was doing.
Yeah. For someone that wasn't trained conceptually, I went to school and I was trained conceptually.
Yes.
Bobby was as great an art director or creative director of anyone that I would have ever met, because he really paid attention to details and he kept pushing it until he got the best he could possibly get.
Yes.
Even like that last article we did, Tom, on the Bob Popovics margarita. I mean, we did that a bunch of different ways until he finally was like, "This is the one." He knew, he had the vision in his mind what he wanted, and he got it.
I drank that margarita, by the way. I did. We sat in the back table.
Hey, Nick.
Yes.
Nick, we drank some margaritas.
When I saw that sailfish come off the wall in the bar at the lodge we were at, I knew I was in trouble. And you remember Bobby found me on the beach at night? I had my sunglasses were on, but was missing an entire lens. I don't know what the hell happened. We had a lot of fixes, Bob.
Yeah, we had a lot of good times.
How did a sailfish come off the wall?
Imagine it.
Oh, I thought he knocked one off.
I don't know if Bob ever told you the story. I know Lance. I had to rent a car. It was a Mustang, and I don't know whatever Jersey throughway that was. I'm following him. Yeah, to go to your restaurant because it was a Monday night. I get a flat. Well, Bob doesn't know I got the flat. Do you remember this, Lance?
Oh.
And I jacked the car up on the wrong end.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, I'm not too mechanical.
I was back and he jacked the front of the.
I remember hearing that.
I got the jack out of the trunk. The flat was in the front. And I'm reading the directions on the jack, and I jacked the back of the car up, and all these people from Jersey are looking at me funny, and I'm like flipping them off, like, "What the hell kind of people are you here? Here I'm having difficulty, and you're laughing at me." And of course, Bob lost it. Your buddy's on Route 9 or whatever the hell it was, and the car's up on the wrong end. It was great.
By the way, Nick is probably one of the most intelligent people that we've ever met.
Oh, you haven't met many people. The trip to Baja was great. That was your first time. Remember, it was his first time. Good fishing, the camaraderie. I looked through the book the other day. That was a fun trip.
Bob was the glue. Was there a link with Bob that connected all these different people?
Yeah, always. I mean, I always felt bad because, like Al, we tried to stay in touch as much as we can, but being on the other coast, we didn't see each other to the degree that we wanted to. But anytime anybody in the fly fishing community got together, inevitably his name came up. And of course, anybody that spent any time with him, there was that connection. Oh, yeah, remember, and back and forth. So he was the glue. He was much like Lefty in that respect. They were both, which it's overused term, but people, what do you call it? People person. They loved people, and he very much made all the social situations gel, no matter where he went. His great gift was making, like these guys kept saying, he made everybody feel at ease. There was never any ego contests. You never felt out of it. The guy was just such a giving guy. Whether it was showing you how to tie a fly, what he was doing with his video camera, he's just a very giving man. And he's going to be deeply missed.
I'll tell you that all the different places that we went together, whether it be Harker's or Montauk or the Vineyard or whatever, I could see that the people that we were with were better off because Bobby was there. That's the impression he had. People just loved to be around Bobby.
I caught my first bluefish running down the beach with him in Martha's Vineyard. He was coaching me. He was my coach all the way down. Get out in front of him. Get out in front. He smelled them before we even found them. He knew the blue. It was awesome. A lot of bass that night. Big fish too, right, Lance?
Because Bobby came up with a fly to catch him. Remember, we were
using a squid fly.
These little tiny flies, and Bob came up with a squid fly.
Yep.
Those fish just were all over that. I remember Jabrowski saying, hey, if anybody gets a fish like 30, 35 pounds, I'd like to get a nice shot of it being released. They always had the cover picture, how they have the little thing inside the note of inside there. I was always just the angler. I was never Lance Irwin. I was always just the angler. And I'm always just the angler.
It's not my fault, Lancy.
So we're fishing. I hook up and I have to run down the beach after this fish. And I'm trying to get back to Ed. I keep calling Ed. It's darker. Hell, there's no street lights. I said, Ed, no Ed. And I revive the fish and get her run a little bit further. Ed. I finally get to Ed with his fish to let it go. And he goes, don't worry about it. I already got like 5 or 6 shots of guys letting that go. I was myself getting back here.
Yeah, that was an epic night for sure.
That's when the shark went by. Remember the shark?
Yes,
I remember
you
that
hear
night.
him mopping up stuff.
Yep.
We moved out of the water. I said, I don't want to
You
be
saw all
part
the
of
lights
food chain.
go on down the beach because everybody was turning their lights on. They saw the big fin coat go down the beach. Yeah.
It was they figured it was a thrasher, a big thrasher.
Yeah.
Anyway, blessed to meet Bobby and be with him as long as I was. It was really.
Yeah, you're lucky, man.
The other thing too, just his love of cats, and I have a love for cats. I never had as many as he did at one time, but just sharing little things like that. And look at his rose garden. He was like a botanist, no training or anything in that. And nobody had a better rose garden than Bob. I mean, and he could spend 8 hours a day out there. He loved it. He was, no matter what I used to say, it's too bad he didn't set his mind to like a cure for cancer, because he probably would have come up with it. Because everything he set his mind to, he excelled.
Yeah.
He was that kind of a guy.
Contentment, it's always just out of our reach. And Bob seemed to be a pretty content person. Is that correct in your mind?
Yeah, he was happy with where he was and what he did. He was happy just with the life he had. You know, he was probably the most content person I know. He really didn't look for much. He was just happy to have his wife and his restaurant and his friends, his cats, and to be able to tie flies and go fishing. I mean, that's really what made him tick. And there was nobody better at it. Nobody enjoyed it more than him. He really could just turn the stress off and put the line in the water.
He told me he wanted to do one thing, which we never did, but I'll never forget this, and maybe somebody will do it someday. But Bobby used to tell me, he'd go, Al, I want to come to the West Coast, but he goes, what I want to do is I want to fish my way around from Maine all the way around on the beach, and all the way through California up to, and just document that. We'll do like a video of catching fish all the way around. And I thought that was the most cool idea.
Yeah.
But he was getting older, and it was hard for him to pull that off. But that would have been that would have been right up his alley. I could see the pop fly van going around the beach.
Paul, what were you saying there for a moment?
I was going to say, I think that his sharing was his contentment in life. That's what made it so special. And Bob was that way. Oh, I had these jackets made. And here's what and all his friends got one of his pop fly jackets. And it was just I think it was more of a gesture of sharing the sport than it was about him at all. So that was one of the things with Bobby is it's like, man, that is so cool. He went and bought all his buddies' hats and jackets and cool stuff. It was like, wow, I want to be part of this posse.
He also cared about the bass.
Oh.
He wanted everyone to catch and release in a proper way. Him and I actually developed the catch and release how-to out here, and it was picked up. We sat in Cleves one night, and Joe, you might have been working there.
I probably was.
And wrote out this whole how do's and don'ts on catch and release just to try to help the fish out so that people that don't know how to handle fish would know how to handle them in a very simple way. But he really cared about the fish as well.
Did he ever mention to you about the breakaway hook idea he had?
Yeah.
Yes.
He wanted to come up with that. He never did, but he wanted to
I always thought that was a great idea. Yeah.
So how would the Tuesday nights end? It's Tuesday night. It's approaching 9.
First off, there was 3 lots across the street from Bobby's house, vacant lots. And we would get there early enough to go out and practice fly casting. And Bobby was always there to help anybody that really needed to cast. And then we would go in the house and have dinner, which was unbelievable. And then go upstairs and tie flies. I left early. I'm an early bed guy. But there was guys there. I'd see Bobby the next day. Yeah, some of the guys stayed until 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning. We had a ball and everything. But there was no set time. You didn't have to be out at a certain time. The only thing there was, like, he only did that in the winter months. But you could stay as long as you wanted. Bobby was a night owl anyway. He thought the sun came up at 10 o'clock in the morning. That's what he thought. He was not an early riser, was he, Paul?
No, he was not. Oh, God. The only time I saw him rise early was he comes down to the Keys, and you were there too, Lance. I'm pretty sure it was one of the trips that we did. But the first day that we go out, he's putting suntan lotion on his head. And I said, Bobby, you should put some of that on your feet. He goes, no, I'm not worried about it. I tan right up. And I said, yeah, but you're going to be standing all day and everything. And this is Florida sun. It gets hot as hell. And he, oh, no, don't worry about me. I tan right up. And he's got his shorts and his T-shirt, but it's on the top of his head that he's applying it. So the next morning, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and I hear this rustling. And I go out in the hall or whatever, and there's Bobby. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, dude, my feet swollen up and I can't even, do you remember that? And he can't even walk, and he's like, I think I gotta go home. I said, I told you. He said, but I didn't think it would happen. I tan right up.
That's why I wore socks. Remember that? We always wore socks.
Yep. And that was, we had to go buy him socks at Kmart, wet them down, slide them on his feet. That was great.
When you ultimately outgrew the space, outgrew the attic, and had to move and make it an actual club, did you miss the old days, or was it the right time, right place to make the change?
No, it's the right time.
Yeah.
It was the right time. It got so the house was really unenjoyable because there was just so many people there. You couldn't, I always stayed in the background because I could go there anytime and watch Bobby tie or learn anything that he was teaching. But it was so uncomfortable that we didn't lose anything by going to the club. I don't think. Bobby still had the passion to show people, and it didn't matter if he didn't know you or if he knew you. It didn't matter.
Yeah, it's the evolution, just like the flies. It was evolving in the right direction.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was nothing about Bobby that was, I don't know, he's just a super person. I can't even explain all the good about Bobby. Anyway,
the best.
Bob's friendship and loyalty were really never in doubt. It seems like Semper Fi was sort of a camaraderie thing that everyone felt with him, almost as if you were part of his troop.
Bobby in Vietnam was a very proud Marine. Very proud.
Yes.
So,
Semper Fi, man.
That's the one fly is a Semper Fi there.
Semper Fi, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we should toast him at some point with a Crown Royal.
Yep.
That's what we got to do at some point.
I've still got his purple bags he gave me. I quit drinking, but I kept his bags.
I use them as real bags.
Same thing.
Yep, they're great real bags.
And God knows I've got a lot of them.
I was just going to say, those Martha's Fishing Trips, he was making these, and he would make sours out of this Royal Crown. Royal Crown sours. So I said to Bobby, if I have one more, will I be your hero? He says, you'll be my hero. I had 5 of them. I fell out of the attic. I mean, I was so screwed up. And that's the night that Dick did the wash machine. Oh, God, the bubbles coming out and everything. I said, fucking Dick, you're cleaning it up.
Well, here's to Bobby.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Everybody be safe.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you all.
It's my absolute pleasure. A gentle, giving, humble, grateful giant.
Thanks, Jamie.
All right.
Have a good
chat.
night, guys.
Thank you so much for sharing this evening. If you want to give us a follow, we'll provide the new episode right to your feed, so we can meet you right back here as we celebrate those who've taken the path less taken.